meet people who share a same likeness to want to help others, who want to use their voice to make a difference. And one of those people is Michele Prigo, and she's going to come up, and this woman is a firecracker, and I don't even know if she knows. Every time I hear like Katy Perry's song, I think about you, because she reminds me of me when I was at this event when I was just going through my diagnosis, and I just wanted to help. I wanted to find a way to help someone. And she's always like, what can I do to help? You know, from volunteering her husband, Nick, say hi.
Hi.
Who, you know, I didn't know this man, you know, busy, you know, doing amazing things in New York, but just taking the time, and I'll try not to cry again, to even lend his help. And I just really get touched by those people who want to make a difference. So I'd like for you to hear Michele's story. If you have the book, it's in here. But for you to understand why cervical cancer is hard. I had it. It's hard. And what it leaves you is really hard. But preventing it, that's the easy part. And we have all the tools to prevent it. And so, Michele, come on up.
Woohoo!
Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to say thanks to Tamika and friends. Tamika does an amazing job of inspiring and motivating, and I'm just really honored that she called upon me to join her. So thank you, Tamika. As Tamika said, you know, cervical cancer is hard and scary, and prevention can be so easy and can be so life-saving. And my story that I'm here to share with you today is about prevention. I had always had a great pap smear. I started going when I was 19. I was very lucky that my mom was a great example of how a woman should care for herself, how a woman should speak openly about women's health, how women should not, keep sexual health in secret. And, I take that message everywhere I go, and I'm hopeful that, I'm relaying that message to you and you pay that message forward. Because as long as HPV is considered, consequence of a woman's choice, then, stigma and fear will just keep going on. So the more we talk about it, the less that can happen. So like I said, I had always had great pap smears, and it was only when I started with a new doctor when I was 33 that she said, I like to do co-testing. I like to be able to tell my patient how at risk they are for cervical cancer. And I was shocked. I had no idea what she was talking about. I had never had an STD. I had always had great pap smears, and it was really just, I thought, well, I don't need to be concerned. I don't really think what she's talking about applies to me, and, I could not have been more wrong. And she said, with the pap smear only tells you when bad cells have already happened. And, that's really valuable information, and I'm not trying to discount the pap test, but wouldn't it be even better if we knew if we were at risk for bad cells in the first place? And, when she framed it in that message, I have to give her absolute credit for that, because that's the message I take forward. There's a lot of controversy about the pap test and screening guidelines, and, it's really important that we also talk about DNA testing for HPV, because HPV is an STD, and cervical cancer is cancer, and as long as those two things are separate, we'll never be able to make it 100% preventable. And so she said, I like to do co-testing. I said, great, sign me up. I had never heard about this. I went to the doctor at 30 and 31 and 32, and no one had ever mentioned it. And unfortunately, I was not educated and informed enough to ask for it. And so, if there's one message I give out to all of you today is to know which test is best for you. It says it right on the back of your shirt. If you're, young enough for the vaccine, it's events like this that empower us to vaccinate our daughters. And if you're over 21, it's events like this that empower us to let young women know about the pap test. And if you're over 30, then please go get your HPV DNA test along with your pap test and tell every single person you know. Because without the HPV DNA test to help guide my care, I may not be standing here today, which is a really scary thought. My doctor, she did the co-testing, and the pap was normal, and the HPV DNA test was positive. And this was so valuable, because if she had just gone by the pap test, she would have sent me on my way, and I could have gone 3 years or maybe even 5 years. And it was only through the DNA test initiating sooner follow-up care, shortening the intervals between my screening, that we were able to catch low-grade ascus. And generally, low-grade ascus is considered not a big deal. Maybe we'll play the wait-and-see game. But I was lucky enough that my doctor thought, well, let's take this more seriously. And so she did colposcopy, and 2/3 of my cervix turned white from the acetic solution. And that's really scary. 2/3, that's almost the whole thing. So she did a biopsy, and the biopsy came back CIN3, which is also considered stage 0. And just the disparity in the two screening tools, the Pap said low-grade ascus, which isn't possibly that alarming, and the biopsy said CIN3, which is very alarming. And so, it's really about the co-testing. The co-testing is what helps us keep cervical cancer preventable. Because without that co-testing that caused me to get a leap right away after the CIN3 was detected, then, I would have gone on to advanced cervical cancer. And who knows, it may have been too late for me. And it's a really scary thought. And how lucky I was, my story should not be the norm. My story should, not be where I'm just the lucky one. My story should be the norm. The story should be everybody feels lucky. The story should be everybody gets all the screening and prevention that they need so that cervical cancer can be 100% preventable. Thank you.
Woohoo!
And that's what it is. This is the norm story. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people, they're not that story, but that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that you take Michelle's message and spread it. Pass it on to a friend. Pass it on to a loved one so that they understand. If you forget, look on the back of your t-shirt. Go to our website. Any of the wonderful things. We always hear that there's a war on cancer. We must prevent cancer. Well, we can do that with cervical cancer. Like I said earlier, Michele is one of those people who she just wants to always help. And she means it, And I just appreciate it. And I'm thankful for everything that you do, for the many organizations that you work with. And we just wanted to give you a small token of appreciation of our love for everything that you do. Thank you. Thank you.
You are an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you.
Really, every time I'm thinking, I don't know if I'm doing enough. I don't know if I'm actually getting the message out. I don't know if what I'm doing is actually making a difference. I think of Tamika, and I think of the work she does, and it propels me forward, and I hope that it propels all of you.
And I appreciate that, because that's what it is. If we each do our small part, together we're a whole who can make a difference. So thank you. So who's ready for another giveaway?